Did you want to be in the frame, Tyler?
He definitely does.
Yes, he does.
I got a
Like
good
that
face
thing
for
over
radio,
in the corner.
Chris.
It's all
Yeah,
him.
I have a good face for radio. We'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Knowledge of that.
Yeah.
Just take some of this.
Well, I'm not gonna worry about it. I'll remember, I'll remember.
Right.
Yeah, are you gonna take Miss Hoffman's place?
Well, yes, I mean, as in like for this thing,
As in going?
yes, for this project, for what we're here for today.
Yeah, to go on the trip.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I mean, between the three of us, myself, Kathy, and Anna Van Dusen. Miss Van Dusen, Miss Shanks, and myself,
This is the trip to Belize.
yes.
I have none of you on here. I have Hoffman and Moffett. Mr.
Oh, yeah, no, it's,
Tell me who it is.
yep, Miss Van Dusen,
Mhm,
Kathy Shanks,
mhm.
myself,
Okay.
and then there's parents that are
Okay,
another
But the
outside.
three of you are,
As staff wise.
Okay.
That's what you're.
yeah,
referring
that's what
to.
I'm wanting.
I can check with Mr. Moffett or Lydia, I don't know if it's Mr. Moffett or,
She had Mr. in here.
okay, I can check with him too.
That'd be nice.
Verify
Just whenever,
one side.
just whenever.
Okay.
What we're going, we have had these.
6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Get motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It is approved. So, I guess since we have a new face in the front of the room here, this is Mr. Chris Peterson, our new superintendent. For anybody who's here watching, so he's our new guy. So we're excited to have him here. Hope he's excited to be here.
Excited to be here, absolutely.
Nothing but good things since I've been talking to Chris the last few months since we hired him, so I think he'd be a great leader for our school, great addition. Just lead us in the future like we always wanted from our superintendents, so excited to have him here, so. Okay, we'll go through the consent items. Expenditures look like there's.
They are. For year end. So I'll know what that final number is by tomorrow, so I will see you all. Significantly under.
We'll wait till.
That's not good news tomorrow. Yeah, that's right.
Either way, that's good. Speed.
We did have our S&P rating phone call this week. And that is a stressful thing, let me tell you. It happens every few years. And because we're not really going to be putting any go-ons out there or any referendums or anything like that, it's not quite as important, but we also want to keep it a good rating so that our existing sponsors of the bonds, don't get nervous or whatever. We were at an A with a satisfactory rating, so it was just like a stable. They did downgrade us a little bit, because of the low general fund balance. It's still an A, but they changed that stable rating to a declining. And, if you have a rate change, then sometimes it's called
Material.
a material event, and so then we have to let all of our bond people know, hey, our rating is lower or increased or whatever. But because they didn't change the grade, we don't have to do that in material event. Now, they will look at our 23-24 audit and then our 24-25 audit to make sure that our finances did what I said that they were going to do. And if for some reason they don't, whether it's even better or worse, then we'll go through this again and they'll look to see if we need to be adjusted again.
Questions on that?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent items.
Second.
Fair say aye.
Aye.
Say no. Consent items are approved. Move on to public forum.
No correspondence.
Oh, okay, sorry, I lost over that. So, yeah. go ahead.
Apparently not, so whatever, I was pausing to make sure.
Thank you.
Okay. When I began attending, school board meetings was in the early 1980s when my kids were in school and some of you were in school with my kids. Because I was working on the open enrollment legislation, trying to get it passed, which we finally did. But one of the things beyond that I was talking about was the fact that education had switched to memorization because those are not really good brain exercises for thinking and problem solving skills. Well, you guys graduated before we got that changed, but by the time my grandkids came along, we finally had No Child Left Behind in 2002, so I've still been talking about that because Iowa hasn't gotten up to the national standards. And I have some additional information here. For the last 18 years, I've been teaching for the University of Maryland, and they've been doing a lot of upgrades and changes. And I thought now that they are publishing this in a magazine, this is only the second, I'm used to reading it online on the website because I can log in, to do that. But I wanted to make this available in case someone would like to just take a look at it for some ideas, things to talk about. And one of the things the president points out, just in this short overview here, is the fact that they got started in 1947 after World War II. So they deal with military as well as people, students all around the country and around the world from various locations. So they are accustomed to dealing with a lot of things. And because of government contract, they are required to use international standards because, as you know, by the PISA exams, those are higher than what we have here. But they've been doing a whole lot of other things. Something else that they have been doing that are mentioned, some of these other articles in here, is the fact they periodically review the concepts that they use because they apply them across disciplines. Think of these as an analogy of exercises for the brain, just like you do exercises for other parts of your body, so you can use your body for a whole variety of activities here. Well, concepts for the brain are the same way. When you have selected the right ones, then you get good exercises and you improve your thinking and your problem solving skill. And they select concepts that help go across disciplines. So that gives you a variety of ways of looking at things. These bring in more factors that you might not consider otherwise if you hadn't, had any reason to be exposed to them. So this is something to also take a look at here. They periodically review these. Another thing that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned, because there's some aspects in here, they're doing a whole lot with this. They are very much focused on what we are doing in our classes. This just changed last semester, and some of the activities we do, because I only teach online, obviously, is we incorporate now activities. We apply these concepts to various work environments depending on what discipline you're teaching, but we also, students are looking at how this applies across disciplines, which gives you better thinking and problem solving skills for job skills in the job market as they move up. They are also beginning this fall incorporating AI because, and I've lived long enough, I do remember when we started getting computers into classrooms and into the workforce, and now we just take them for granted every day. But I still remember when they were getting it. AI is working the same way here. There are some very excellent skills to use this, and they're going to be very big in the workforce. They're expanding very rapidly, as this article explains in here, and why we are beginning to incorporate them in our classes. And another is so you don't find yourself getting scammed by something less and less because you've developed the skills to do that. But the other really big aspect of another article in here is they have greatly expanded the student support system. We do not begin, and that does include Baxter, to have enough teachers with the skill levels to adequately support students that need maybe some additional support or some help with getting them to be able to tune in and see things and get them all done. And this has greatly expanded, and they do have some examples in one of these articles. And I can tell you for this last school year, so it started last fall, so we got fall, spring, and summer here, because my summer class just opened last week. I spent today grading the first week's work. But when we have a student in our class that falls into that category and needs some additional things, we are provided with specific things that we need to do to be able to work with them. And if we do not do it, the student gets special attention, and we don't get assigned classes anymore. That's it. We're done with them. So I thought maybe some of the activities and ideas mentioned, this might provide with some additional thoughts if anybody has time in the summer and would like to borrow it to take a look at it. It's readily available for you to do more research. If you want to be in touch with anyone here, I can help you get you some additional information. But you do have a lot of students here that need some additional support, and they're fine once they mentally connect and they can apply the concepts, but they really need that. So anyway, if this would help, just let me know, since I'm only 4 blocks away. I'm more than happy to make that available for you. And I know I took more than 3 minutes, but sorry about that.
Thank you.
You,
Public? Yeah, so,
We're on new business.
okay. Move right on into it then.
Return.
Well, you want to set it up here? You guys have to click. I can move this
Okay,
down.
so,
You sure?
Hello, I'm Claire.
I'm Ethan. I'm Grace.
And I'm Natalie, and we've been planning this trip with the help of Ms. Hoffman. We put together this presentation to propose the idea of a service learning trip to Belize during the 2025 school year. We ask that you please hold any questions until the end. Thank you.
All about the trip. This is a service learning trip to Belize on March 5th to March 13th, which would be offered to the junior and senior classes of the 2025 school year. This opportunity would allow them to volunteer and learn about cultures outside of the U.S. Belize is a country in Central America where their wealth and class determine a person's lifestyle. Volunteering in Belize will not only be a safe place for students to travel, but also a great place to help people.
The reason that we chose Belize over other places to volunteer is because Belize is a safe place, but also a place that needs help. Amanda Hoffman witnessed a poor mother and son begging for money when she was on a trip there with the Beta School. We want to help these people since the government does not give Belize people money. So if they have no job in Belize, they have no source of income. The lady on the right, her name is Kelly, and she'll be going with us. She's been working on Belize mission trips for a while now, and she owns a company that we are working with to plan this. And the lady on the left, her name is Emily, and she is the program leader at Belize, and she'll be introducing us once we arrive. The company that we are going with is Global Service Partnerships, and they allow many students the ability to help others and learn about different countries.
For the proposed itinerary, Day 1, the 5th of March, will be a travel day, flying to Belize. On the 6th and 7th of March, we'll be volunteering for the Stella Maris, which is a special needs school. The 8th is an activity day. We'll be visiting the Mayan ruins and making chocolate. The 9th is when we'll transfer to Belize City. March 7th and 8th is the second half. This is when we'll help the playground service team. And finally, our last day will be filled with travel headed back to Iowa. Through this trip, food and hotels are included each day.
Our first full day in Belize, we'll be visiting Stella Maris, a school in Belize City. This is the only special needs school on the island, and we'll be volunteering there for a full day, and after that, creating fun memories with our classmates while doing chocolate making and visiting Mayan ruins. For the second part of our trip, we will be in Ambergris Cay. Here we will spend 2 days volunteering at Brighter Tomorrow Preschool. This is a preschool run by a family who gave up their home to run the school. In the mornings, it's like a normal preschool setting, while in the afternoon, they help children with special needs. Here, we will be helping them create an outside play area for the children. In addition to this, we will get to spend a fun day on the beach.
Every person that will be helping / directing us in Belize is a licensed professional. Wherever we are, there is always a hostel about an hour within. Our tour guides are comfortable with the island and directions through it. Wherever we are staying at and the schools we are volunteering at are all gated and safe, and we have various chaperones going with us.
We are hoping that the cost of the trip will mostly be covered by fundraising, while the rest is individually funded. Each person who attends a fundraising event will receive an equal portion to go towards their cost of the trip. The overall cost of the trip is $3,325 per person. This includes airfare, hotels, travel insurance, liability coverage, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and additional activities. This payment will be split into different deposits throughout the year.
Moving on to advertising. We'll be planning to supply a pamphlet organizing all about the trip. This will be given to students and parents. Also, we'll be contacting students and parents through social platforms such as email and etc. That way, they will be able to understand what the trip is about and will contain.
Our next step is our action plan. We're hoping that this gets approved, and after we'll be holding a parent meeting that will go over more information. This time we can get a locked-in list of students that will be attending this trip. After this, we'll start our fundraising journey. We would like to thank you again for your time, and when considering this trip's approval, we hope that you not only think about how this may impact us, but also the people we'll be helping. Thank you. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for us?
I don't know much about Belize, but you say it's a safe place. I mean, it's the culture, and the relatively calm area.
The area we will be in, yes, correct. It's safe, I've been there.
Okay. No worries about traveling or.
The company that you're going through, they do this regularly to this location, and they've been around for a while. And then how many, do you have to have a minimum number of attendees in order for the trip to make sense?
So the cost is like $3,325, that's 12 plus people. And that includes like chaperones and everything. So that would probably make sense.
And there's no cap.
Essentially, if we could get more, the more we have, the lower our cost could be per person. So we would like at least 12.
So it will be open to anybody in
Any
the junior, senior
Any
class.
junior, senior. Experience.
No more questions?
Sounds like it's actual doing things there too, good things.
Great job on the presentation.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay and see if it's approved.
Well,
About 10 seconds. Yeah. Any other questions or discussion for?
Just making sure that when we send people on these trips, they know here it's got liability coverage and all that, but is there anything we need to be concerned with?
I don't think so. When we are going through a company like this global service, they're sort of like the Smithsonian people that we go through, you know, like when we go to on the DC trip and that, like we've had so I would say several international trips that generally happen about every other year. So I think this was different in the sense that it's more of a service learning rather than just a sightseeing in a right?
Second.
Pick one. All those in favor say.
Aye.
Say no. Good, please, been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Do you guys want, are you guys doing did the parents get the thing?
Not yet.
So you guys
No,
can-
but
I
they
didn't know.
will eventually.
Save you guys
want to
printing it.
Like you did.
Nope.
Reference back.
That'll
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Big round hole. Unbelievable.
No, I think they wouldn't want to get out of here.
Next item. Big, exciting.
Exciting.
About the bank. I thought that was.
Sure. So each year we just have to approve our depository. And we have to note that it's for a maximum of $5 million. We've actually been written up before if I don't say what the dollar amount is. So that's why that's in there. We just do it every year. Doesn't mean that we can't invest anywhere else in, you know, our funds anywhere else, but they will be our official depository.
What if we have over 5?
Then we would deposit it elsewhere. We would
I was
go
curious.
5 million, or we would reapprove it for a higher amount.
Okay.
I don't
No, I
think
don't.
we would. Well, I would.
All right, we have a motion to approve state savings bank. Our depository bank.
So moved.
Second.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Say no. State savings bank. Take a look at registration fees.
We're pretty much in line with where others are, other than, our lunches. So let me give you a little bit of background on that. We used to have to fill out it's called a PLE tool. And it's an equity tool. And basically you plug in the numbers of the lunches that you're serving and students that you're serving and the cost of that. And it basically spits out a number back to you that says you should be charging at least this much. And you really should go by that, because if you don't stay on top of it, then it just keeps falling. Well, if you have a positive balance in your account at the end, this is kind of a newer rule, I'm gonna say the last 5 years. If you have a positive balance in your nutrition fund at the end of each year, then you aren't required to fill out a PLE tool. So our last couple of food service directors didn't fill it out. We've had a change of hands, and as she's learning, I just instructed her that I thought that it would be a good idea that we fill that out just for our own knowledge, so that we don't get blindsided, you know, and need to increase lunches or breakfast or things like that, because the law is that you can only increase it 10 cents a year. we really need to increase it about 75 cents. Because those last few years, we got a little bit behind the eight ball. So, we will be seeing an increase probably for the next few years of at least 10%, 10 cents, in those areas.
A lot of positive balance, kind of just for the COVID money, right?
It is, but we are an anomaly. There's a lot, there were a lot of schools around here that would operate in a negative balance. COVID came along and if there was a positive thing from COVID, that's what it was. I mean, I don't know that there are any schools who are not flush with money now in that account. So, that's not to say that it's just sitting there not being used, we try to be cognizant of those monies, so. Still, when we, plugged in the information from that PLE tool, our numbers and our expenses, as you know, the expenses have increased significantly over the last couple of years. And I think that's really what's driven this, so, it was about 75 cents, per lunch is what it should have increased, but the law says we can increase it by 10 cents, so we'll just have to do that for a few years to kind of get back on track.
Keep on.
How does it change year to year? I mean, you've got a positive balance, but is that shrank or is it increased or like from a year ago? What are we at?
It shrank
Okay,
because this last year, or this year that we're just finishing up, we actually are back to a normal environment where parents have to pay and whether it's reduced or paying parents the 2 years before that it was free. So it has shrank, not to mention the expenses of the food, and how hard it is to get it. They have come out with a couple of farm to school programs that we've benefited from over the last couple of years by about $15,000 each year, which helps a lot.
are you service director? They are utilizing that too?
Yes. So, that balance has went down, but we're still above where we.
But if we kept going at that pace, we'd
Yeah.
use up on the positive balance.
Yeah, not to mention your salary increases, your insurance increases, all the normal increases.
The position that you're talking about here make any difference with the assistance received for those students whose family can't afford their lunch free or reduced expenses for those lunches?
No, the amount that they pay for reduced lunch is a federally set amount, and so that will not change.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Mhm.
One of the things looking at, going through the other fees, like last year, the band instrument rental maybe wasn't getting collected,
Yeah,
or something like that. Sure.
we still need to have a conversation about that. Just getting ready to gear up for registration again this year, so we'll probably get that clarified when we're working on it to see what we need to be doing about it.
So the proposed rates, are you saying are the same for everything other than lunch?
Yeah, other than the meals down below.
The activity passes, not that I want to see them go higher, are those going to stay since we've raised other, like the gate fees? And are we putting the online passes on here?
Online passes?
The YouTube channel, the,
That's completely separate from this.
okay.
Yeah, and I don't even know what has been agreed to at that point. I think at some point the board would need to approve that, but I think that they have, I think we've talked about it, but I don't think you've approved it.
Is that the streaming thing?
Yeah, the streaming thing.
Got it.
You remember what, was it like 7 something? I'll have to.
I don't remember.
I'll have to go back and look, but that is not on here. But we will be sure to, I'll go back and look at the minutes to be sure.
Yeah,
And that would be something that we could put on our registration and get it taken done, and get it done, you know, for like the year. Do you
Yeah.
remember, was it per season or was it per year? Remember that? Okay, that's okay.
Say season.
season was what my assumption was.
Well, we're gonna use YouTube, but we used to use the NHS, and now they're going to town, and it's.
I feel like we need to get it clarified so
Right.
that as people are going through registration, they understand what all things
Agreed.
are covered.
Agreed. So, I will get right on it and see what we said in the minutes, and then I will, Mr. Vaughn. He will be that go-between person for us, and make sure that Angel knows that she'll be the one that, well, we work together to put the registration together.
One of the things that some area schools are doing, that maybe you think about not for 24, 25, but for 25, 26, is they're increasing the registration fee by $10 or $20, but then admitting all students into activities for free.
And the student activity, so.
The student activity passes go away.
So just show us student ID then.
That could be a student ID or whatever they've determined.
Some sort of.
They may even issue them that they still have student pass available. They may even still hand them out to students, but yeah. And
That would be a lot.
with the ultimate goal, obviously, to increase your revenues both at the gate, because if a kid comes to a game, your parents will come with them, right? And then your concessions is the other area where you make revenue on that. So some schools are starting to move in that direction. I think Colonesco is one that is doing that. GMG is doing that next year. So just something to think about.
Makes sense, because well, let's go to the game tonight, but they don't have a pass, or they get a pass from the parents or whatever.
Well, it is making it a little bit more difficult when you have to pre-buy your tickets now, you know,
Yeah.
you're bound and,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing. It's just-
That may be another way we push passes, season passes for those that don't
So
like to not be cashless, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the hot topic.
Yeah.
as well.
So next year you have to use bound online for everything?
Is it a requirement next year? They were
Well-
pushing
Or
towards
just
it.
for
It's going
the
to-
conference?
No, everything. Well, everything that that's sanctioned, you know, like through the athletic association or the union or whatever. They were strongly recommending it. I think it's required now. I know Mr. Vaughn got his hand slapped because we did the middle school conference. Was it middle school we had here, or high school, that, whichever one it was. You know, the old way. But we could see this as a way to push passes, because it's up front, and then you don't have to worry about the door or purchasing your ticket the day before.
But for any of those conference events, you still do have to purchase a separate one outside of our passes.
For like an away event, you mean? Or-
No, so when we host a conference.
Like
that-
Like
district
like a
pass.
It
district-
is district meeting.
Yes,
because
yes.
The pass doesn't.
That's-
No, and that's the way it is now.
And that money
That's always
goes to,
been.
that money goes
Right,
to.
I was just pointing, like,
Yeah.
it doesn't solve that.
No, we still would have to do that, and it's not going to solve your problems for the away games either. It's going to,
Just conference, regular season, home.
but then all of that money is coming to us, as opposed to Bound is taking like 80 cents on the dollar.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. That's why we're talking about going to this streaming thing,
Right.
because it's unbelievable what they're taking from us from the admissions.
How can they force us to?
They have a bit of a monopoly in that. I mean, I don't know if they bought out others, but that's where all the officials are now residing within
Yeah.
this company. So like you have your contracts between schools and that will all reside in this. All of your stats reside in this. They have a bit of a monopoly.
It's not too different in the football realm. the state requiring you to purchase Huddle, right? So you have to share game film through a certain platform, which is anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a year. So, yeah, it's,
Well, if it's a one-time fee, I can get more on board with that than taking maybe some $1 for every dollar.
yeah.
Not to
There's gonna be
mention
a service
that we're
fee.
paying a service fee too to them. As
And
a
besides
district.
schools.
Yeah.
So the question.
I'm beside myself. I'm beside myself.
Question then implies, does you eat that money as a district, or do you pass that money on to your consumer, right? Just like it would with any other business. So that's gonna be typically a conference decision as far as what they continue to charge for gate, how they can those things.
So we figured that up initially, well, no, never mind, your activity pass, they can still buy it through the school and not through bound, correct?
Right. So
But
we would still
anything
be
to
getting
gate.
100% of those.
Or if we took more into registration, like Chris was saying, I mean, however we do that, then we're keeping our money.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anything that we take electronically,
Yes.
but does that mean, like, when people are paying like credit card through concessions and anything like that?
There's a service fee,
Through service.
there may not be that 80 cent fee that she's talking about.
Right.
Oh, okay,
Right.
okay.
There still will be a service.
But that's
fee.
also,
Yeah.
but that's also boosters. That's not the
Right,
district, your
okay,
concessions remember,
okay.
so, yeah. There's, so like
Just
you
when
guys
they
pay
walk through the door, just gate fees is what we're talking. The gate.
admissions,
Yeah,
yep, yep.
Basically lose out on every dollar we get from.
It might not be exactly 80 cents, but I know that it's more than 50.
Did raise $1 last year, right?
And the gate fees are what pay the officials, right?
The
Gate
gate
fees
fees
are what
are
pays the
the only
officials and all that.
revenues that we have from sports. Unless we charge an entry fee like in track or something like that, which we do. And the officials have, those fees have went up significantly as well because not everybody wants to do it anymore.
All that, I wish I got that in high school.
And
And
other
some of-
schools haven't talked about charging each other to, I guess it could be kind of.
That's an
Because
interesting
you would-
concept though, because I don't know why anybody's giving up 80% of their gate revenue. I mean, that's, some of these events bring in a lot of people.
I think it's coming around. I think it's just coming around. People are realizing, okay, maybe we can increase our registrations to somehow recoup this, because, I mean, I was shell shocked for this past year, because I just, are you sure it's that much, are you sure? And,
Just out of curiosity, registration money, what does that go towards or what?
So it's supposed to go towards your curriculum. And so, generally what you do is if we take in $12,000 in registration, then we should be spending that amount in curriculum. So, we try to keep that pretty close to that. Now, we might, if we know that we have a large curriculum purchase coming, we may be less this year and carry that over to the next year, so like if we have I think our registration fees are about 18,000. And so, our, curriculum, like if we had, I think we just had like maybe a $20,000 or $24,000 curriculum purchase, but we went light the year before, so we knew we're gonna have to make up for it.
Can you take money? I'm still learning how money moves.
Yep.
If you have that $24,000, we have 18, do you take the balance from somewhere else then, or does it all have to come? from
It basically
registration?
just sits in there because we didn't spend it from the year before.
Okay,
It's all general fund. So
Okay.
in theory, it sits there.
okay.
Some schools have integrated technology into those fees too, or they have a separate technology fee.
We have. a technology fee, right?
I thought we did, but I was
I was
looking
gonna say,
at
I'm
it now.
pretty sure we
But-
We,
paid one.
not that I'm aware of, but like your chargers and that you would, like if you're replacing, you thought you paid one?
For the Chromebooks that they use?
I swore we had it.
I thought it's not.
Sorry.
It's like
Where would I go
paper
for
that says you're
registration?
gonna break it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you do have to pay for them if
Right, I don't-
they are broken or lost. or you have to replace the screen, or we charge
Right.
for that.
Charge for a large charger or something like that, right? Yeah. So we'll have to make up for 2 years.
I mean, I want to be sensitive when I ask this question, but like registration like that can't turn into $100 fee, and we incorporate like that, other things into that, like whether it be, I mean, is that just too much to ask? Or,
No, but is it too much to ask a parent to pay $100 per kid?
that's what I mean, yeah,
Well-
maybe that's what I'm asking, like,
That's quite a jump.
it
But-
it isn't, I mean, you're sending your kid to school all year long for $100, I mean, I feel like that's, and again, I wanna be sensitive saying this,
Yeah.
I'm sitting there also saying, you're sending your kid off to get an education for $100 a year, that's, wow. Like, if that helps the school do little things, but, I mean, I don't know, I'm just asking.
We
Yeah.
try to be pretty equal with our surrounding districts, and that, I mean, this year we don't have it. In the past, Julie, you've had the surrounding districts. That's pretty nice when you lay it out, like Colfax, Maine goes X amount. We always try to be kind of right in the middle, so. I mean, that's kind of how we've established it before, so. But maybe next year, Julie, if you
For
could do a survey again, kind of make sure that we are keeping up with
Where we
what,
need to be.
what the other districts are, so.
Yeah, for sure.
So do the activity pass monies go to the general fund or to the activity funds? So if we put it in registration, you have to try to figure out.
That really already happens, because our online registrations are done through JMC, right? JMC only lets, so JMC only lets you have 2 accounts that are hooked up to your online registrations, right? Well, I really need 3 accounts. I need general, activity, and lunch. Can't do it. So the activity goes into general, and then each month when I'm balancing it, I transfer it from general over to the activity. And we just did increase, last year, we increased those activity passes pretty significantly.
Questions? Approve the proposed registration fee?
So move to approve the student registration fees.
Motion second, one favor say aye.
Aye.
Saying no.
Corey or Julie, next year, like, so that's on our radar, like, is that something we talk about a month ahead of time if we wanna?
Yes, so let me tell you this. Normally, you would approve these in May.
Oh,
Yeah, and so, but for
Yeah.
reasons that I wasn't okay with, they had moved them to June, which really didn't make any sense to me, but I didn't argue it. So that's where they were when they fell this year because of where they moved in last year. So, they will get moved back to May, next year. And actually, I can move them to April if you'd rather.
maybe just something for us to like, so that whatever we're actually agreeing on, like, this discussion actually is more of a.
I have 2 points. It would be nice to have the discussion and give us time to research and come back with information and then make the decision.
Sure. That sounds good. So I'm happy to do that. So I'll put it on April. And so that you know that your vote is gonna come up in May. And then, I will plan on just having, the information like from other schools and things like that, in the April meeting, so it gives you time to think about it or whatever. Normally, I'm not the person who deals with this, but because of the change of command and all that stuff, it kind of didn't get, happen the way that it should. So, for sure, you'll have all the information that you need for April. Okay?
Yeah, great, thanks.
The level 1 and level 2 investigator for students.
Wasn't sure, wasn't sure what to do about this. Maybe, Mr. Peterson has an idea about this. Prior to it being the Bastrop Police Department, the sheriff had a person that we used as that level one, I guess. And now we don't have our police department, but it does say, or their designee, so I don't know what we need to do about this.
Somebody explain what level one investigator is.
Yeah, so the level one, which is, that's gonna be your initial one, and that's usually a school employee, and that's what we have listed here as our school nurse, so, if we get into something that is above and beyond that, you know, typically schools do one of two things, like Julie said, you're gonna contract with somebody outside of the district typically. I know
And you're
that
specifically licensed in that area, like one
Right.
person, like in the sheriff's department, was that person.
investigator.
Yeah,
So your level one investigator performs their investigation and it determines if it needs to be moved to level two investigation. So I think at this point in time, we need to leave it as it is, Julie, and get more information. And we'll talk a little bit more in my report about the SRO position. I think what we need to do is contact Jasper County and ensure that they would have somebody that can fulfill that duty. If not, we would probably need to contract that out, which we can do as well, which I've done in the past I can get her name if we need, if so need be, but, I think we'll leave it as it is right now until we get more information on the direction we go with the SRO position.
okay. So you can approve it as Bastrop Police Department or their designee for 24-25.
Should we do the sheriff's? Because really, there is no Baxter Police Department
I was
anymore.
wondering.
So do you think?
Has that formally been done? Because at the last meeting, they weren't there yet.
But currently, there isn't any at this moment because they are contracted through Jasper currently, so there technically is a police department in either scenario.
So you think we should put Jasper County Sheriff's Department or their designee?
Well, at the same time, it's be good to know if they have.
Yeah, because I don't even know if they have one anymore. It used to be a lot of previous, I think, or Gonzalez. Can't remember.
And I remember we kept using that one person's name and then he contacted me because, I mean, we just, every year it rolled over
Yeah.
or whatever, and he's like, I retired like 2 years ago. He goes, here's the new person.
Oh, so they did give you a new,
They gave, yeah, at that time. But that's been
well, we've
4
had,
or 5 years
yeah,
ago.
yeah. Well, we can table it
Yeah.
until August, I'm gonna say, we should know by then.
Yeah.
And then we can approve it. Are you okay with that? Then we should know.
We can do it in July, should be able to. I think they should,
Will you know
No.
about the SRO situation and all
I don't
that?
know about the SRO, but they'll know.
But I don't think the SRO can be this investigator anyways, they have to be separate, so.
Right, we would still, I think we would still have the ability if the SRO thing fell through to utilize, if they have a level two investigator at Jasper County, to utilize that for that purpose.
Okay.
Outside of the SRO position.
Okay.
I think it's just a matter of finding out whether they have someone that works in that avenue.
That's what I was just gonna ask, is there a cost, even if you don't use it?
That's so many topics.
Like Gonzalez.
Only these.
Yeah.
That's so new time again.
Let's look back to 2019.
Yeah.
So. Was that Rodriguez or Gonzalez?
I've got a name. That's also-
I'll make a motion. We approve the level 1 and 2 investigator for student abuse until July.
Table until-
Okay,
okay.
Yeah.
I'll second the table. Favor say aye. Aye. That's it. Next one. Besides, fuel and diesel. So we're able to come up with another contact to actually get a hold of. So,
Yep, so
and it's,
there's the New Century Farm Service bid, that's their second bid. Um, and then, Key Co-op's bid,
We mean by their second bid, they rebid it, or
yes,
Okay.
so.
we put it out again, did we? or-
We did.
Okay,
I felt it was only fair.
Yep.
And so with the, relationship that we've had with them over the years, I felt it was only fair to do that. I did not tell them what the other bids were, but I did tell them that if they were to come in lower than any of the other bids, that I would at least bring them up to what the lowest bid was. I felt that was fair to them. They still didn't come in low enough. So that's what those numbers are. I haven't talked to them at all, so.
so then the tanks,
Free.
we keep these tanks though, or is that
No.
gonna get?
FS will come and get them, yeah. And then Key Co-op will bring in theirs, yeah.
kind of the containment thing that they said in, I can't remember. We used to, but I can't remember, we moved and that they still have that.
Do you mean the death thing?
Like a
No, the
barrier around the
that the tank sits in case it leaks.
Oh,
thought there was something.
There used to be, but I'm thinking, I can't remember, because we had to move the tanks, and I can't remember if that got moved, or if it was like size of the tank was below the minimum level. It's like, you don't need-
is it above ground that you would see it?
Yeah,
The-
yeah,
The
it was
tank-
just like a steel
the tank
square
sits at the
box
side of the
that had
box.
sides on it, tank sat in.
Like say maybe it's so small enough.
Yeah,
Could be.
I know on a farm, it looks like 100,000,
Yeah, we have that. It's
500.
70.
It's a motion for Key Co-op under fuel. Hunter,
I'll move to approve the Key Co-op for our fuel supplier next year.
Second?
favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
You want me to stay? Yes, thank you.
All right, moving on to facilities, grounds, transportation.
This is like the pain of my existence.
I guess concrete.
Like I said, about this at 3:30 today and have probably a dozen emails back and forth with him because, well, first of all, if you look at this email, the carpet bids for 110, it's actually 410 is the room number, and it's most of this room over here, the one that we've pretty much decided needs to be done. That's the 4729. The carpet bid for 116, that's 1,450. That's an insurance claim. And so I don't know how much of that is actually going to be an expense to us because he hasn't provided me with the amount that insurance is giving it because they'll depreciate it and.
Is that little room? or-
Yeah.
Okay, couldn't figure out why the spare didn't get the room.
Yeah, I mean, I asked him if that's what that room was and he never answered me, but I'm just pretty sure that's what it is. So then you go to the second bid from this Jim Bell Flooring. So I don't know which room is which, but the total is $7,000, which is significantly more than the above one, but it also includes baseboards. I asked him if the top bid included baseboards, otherwise we're not comparing apples to apples, and I didn't get a reply to that. It did look like to me, he sent something to me, it looked like maybe the baseboards and that was maybe only around $400. So if you take that 400 off of that 7,000, I mean, but I wouldn't feel comfortable with just trying to decide it on this email, because there's too many what ifs there, but it's your call.
And we'll go and install food first bid.
I assume so, but
Well, we need them split out by room, don't we, if one's gonna be an insurance claim?
yeah.
Just
And normally, I
apples
mean,
to apples.
while it is gonna happen in the summertime, that's not really even something that you guys would, approve or not, because it's an insurance thing,
Right.
And, I mean, it's, you guys are probably okay with knowing it, but whatever they give us, and then whatever the expense is, as long as we turn in the invoice of the difference, then the insurance will reimburse us the difference. I just don't know where we are in that insurance claim. We should have those numbers.
With a deductible for our insurance.
Yeah, $1,000.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing, like,
I-
which one of these, because are we gonna be?
That 1450 is an insurance one, so.
It is, but it's not the only thing on it.
I see.
And actually what we do is remove $1,000 of the deductible from the management general fund.
I guess I'm not comfortable approving anything on, I know that ICN Ed's run needs it. I mean, that's been a disaster for a couple of years, but I guess I want to see bids and have it by room and apples to apples, so we
Yeah.
can compare.
And I'm just looking at this store for homes quote that he had included last month. And it doesn't say anything about removal. It just says room 410 carpet tiles, 47.29. Mrs. Kern's room carpet tiles. It's not Mrs. Kern's, but 1,450.
I think the bigger question is, does it include installation? I mean, removal, I don't think. You're getting some people installations. So,
Well, so that's another thing. I mean, in theory, we can install carpet tiles. But I don't know where we are in that situation. I just- Says removal and installation, and there's glue that they have to scrape up and stuff like that. I told them that I didn't expect you guys to approve it by that email and it not be an itemized out.
Sure, they would have sent some sort of.
Is there anything that's so pressing on this list that has to be done?
Well, the carpet, because it's classrooms.
What is existing? I guess it's a question, what is existing in there right now?
So it's this room right here, and it used to be our ICN room. So where the counter was and all the electronic equipment and all that good stuff. We've sort of patched that and thrown rugs over it and everything. We've kicked that can down the road several times. It really does need to be fixed, but that's a special ed classroom. And then this other one that flooded is a special needs classroom for like one student. Who is a 1-to-1 and 2-to-1.
If that one's indeed an insurance claim, we really don't even need to see that.
That's what I'm saying, that's what I'm
So,
saying, that would be
It's like if
dealt with,
if they can
you
get,
wouldn't even.
yeah,
Yeah.
get that through insurance.
Let's split out the other ones, at least.
Right.
they
Yeah.
Compare those two. at least.
And then he said, and then I
Metal.
think he says on there, he's trying to get one from Strands as well that he hasn't even gotten yet.
I think in general, we weren't really sure, but bleachers, we have to adjust these bleachers in the East Gym in some way, shape or form.
So
And there's
he's,
some concrete issues out here that are liability and that.
yep, it's been crickets on the concrete. But he did reach out to Townsend, who did our, bleachers out at the complex when we had the derecho. We, redid all of those and they did an excellent job, if you ask me. And so, their bid is supposed to be coming maybe tomorrow, he said. That's what Bill's telling me. So at least we'll have 2 quotes, but I don't know what that quote's gonna look like. He did have some.
And tomorrow don't do us jack, cause I'm not coming in for a special meeting, so it might as well be the day before July
Yeah.
meeting.
I understand.
I mean, we waste a month.
Yeah, and I'm a little nervous about even once we decide what their install date is,
Right.
you know,
I'm sure they're busy on the summer.
well, with all the storms that have happened down south, maybe they're all over there trying to,
Not ideal to do during the school year,
not when it's indoors,
especially during the season.
volleyball.
Yeah, volume and football.
And then it goes to
PE,
basketball, PE.
It's just everything. Seems like concrete would probably do that. During school, if you just
I feel like we can do that.
But
I do feel like we can
Tape
do
it off
that,
well.
but
But it'd be nice to get moving on it too.
Yeah.
I mean, their summer
I
projects.
still think if it's not raining when we get done with our meeting, we got time
Yeah.
to walk out. I don't know if we got some marking paint or whatever, but just mark the ones that we want
We do.
bid.
We do, so if you just tell me, I did tell him after the meeting that we want a quote for just the ones that we think are liabilities, like this one out here is what concerns me the most. And I just don't remember, even those cracks, they're unsightly, but I don't feel like they're a liability.
Right.
And then we need to probably take a look at those steps down at that end, because it didn't even look like he addressed those on the quote that he gave us. Looks like he did.
And that wasn't so
out
much
around
the
it.
concrete, if I remember right, it was just the
The metal
metal
guard, yes,
spacing.
but still, wouldn't that company be the one who fixes it?
Not necessary.
Okay.
Oh, and there was some door stuff, right? You have to get the door stuff.
Yeah, it's crickets, it's crickets.
Julie, I just, all those.
I just feel like every time he sees me, he tries to run the other way, because I've just been so. on it.
Reservations contracts. So. Something's like before season and after season, or how does this? do?
For the next year. For the next season. That would dress
Yeah, so like.
So,
wrestling,
like
is
Kyle
that before
Peasley
this
went-
year?
for 24-25.
Yeah.
He's not going to be a wrestling coach.
So like
anymore.
Luther's,
Yeah, he's going to resign football and track for the next year. Um,
initially.
That's surprising. So,
So, and Chris Smith as teacher, speech officer, and Anna Hoffman as elementary guidance counselor.
second,
Statement, resignations approved. New contracts.
I don't know how to pronounce that last name, his last name, but that's, the Clay hire, he, knew her. So she's actually coming from Newton, so, and, she's going to take over the Christmas spot there. Jill Halter, as you know, was our shared elementary counselor. Colbeck's Mingo carried the contract on it. My understanding that she gave her resignation, she had signed a contract, but they let her out of it. And so she's going to be our as well as first grade teacher. She was at Newton, I believe she has signed a contract as well that has resigned and they are. So she's taking Mrs. Bishop's because Mrs. Bishop is going to be the new PLC coach.
Okay.
So are we gonna do a shared elementary guidance counselor or with Colbeck's
Yes,
Mango?
so
is
they
that-
already had somebody else, which was part of the reason why they went ahead and let Jill out of it, because they already had somebody in mind that they were going to bring on as another guidance counselor, and so she'll just fit into that position there.
So we'll share
still
that person.
Yeah. Yeah, I reached out to him, have assured me that it's not superintendent salary. You know. Well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Good. Approve the new contracts pending Jill Alter and Jennifer Clausen's approved resignation from the current district.
I'll move to approve new contracts.
Second.
Second.
Contracts are approved.
So, yeah, I'm just gonna talk about a couple of things, you know, anytime we go through a legislative session, there's really two parts to it. There's the closing of the session and the signing of those bills, the passage of those bills. Then there's a second part that comes in that discusses the implementation and involves guidance from the Department of Ed on how do we interpret those things and how do we implement those things. So this was a fairly busy spring when it comes to legislation and fairly substantial legislation regarding education. So just kind of an update on what we're talking about with that. Over the past couple of years, it's been about 3 years now, Governor Reynolds had repealed the open enrollment deadline about 3 years ago. So there was no March 1st deadline for 1st through 12th grade students. There was no September 1st deadline for kindergarten students. That has been put back into play. So starting July 1st, we cannot accept any open enrollment for next year unless it's a kindergarten student up through September 1st. Now, they can still, they've got a week and a half, you know, that they can still put their application and we can accept it. But once July 1st rolls around, we cannot accept any of those open enrollment applications because the March 1st deadline does go back into play. That's important, obviously, for us, the district, because we have a high percentage of open enrollment students.
Megan, do we need to post something somewhere? It hasn't been posted on Facebook user, but do we need to post like reminders?
It actually has been on social media. We haven't been those people that have posted it, but we're happy to do that, but I'm not sure how to do that because they wouldn't be on our
It would be.
student.
Correct.
You know, so,
Follow surrounding district.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, I'm happy to post it on our.
No, I
social
keep
media.
reading, like, so once you approve somebody's open enrollment once, you don't have to keep approving
No,
them.
right.
We don't
No.
worry about those that are already.
Correct.
part of our-
Yeah.
Right, it's just those wanting to.
So like, if we have somebody call in, like we did last week,
Yeah.
I said you need to get us the stuff by June 30th. Otherwise, we can't.
As long as it's in our hands by June
Right.
30, it doesn't have to be approved until the next meeting or whatever, but yeah. And then it just goes, the March first deadline is exactly what it used to be.
Yeah.
So it's by March first for the following year.
From a record keeping standpoint, it's nice to have a deadline. And because the way funding works and the date that you get paid for kids when they're on your roster versus when they're not, it's just, while I'm sure the flexibility was nice, it made it difficult from Julie's standpoint, talk about billing and what kids were educating, getting paid for, and those types of things.
It was pretty nightmarish, we had a few kids that actually open enrolled in for 11 days. And then open enrolled, or then left and went back to where they were, so I have to keep track of what day they come in, what day they leave, and then make sure that, it was a bit of a nightmare. And, I mean, we're on the receiving end of it, so, because they're coming to us, but can you imagine those students, like, we have Newton, well, that's our biggest ones, they're having to pay that out, and they're not getting the money for them even until next year.
Second one on there is kind of in the same realm. It's open enrollment transportation. Now, there was some legislation passed that allows the district under 2,000 students to travel 2 miles into another district to pick up open enrolled students. But there's a caveat to that. Your center of education has to be closer to that student's home than their resident district center of education. Okay. So if you hear that, well, we can go 2 miles into this district, that's not necessarily true. If they're a resident of that district and they're closer, like Newton, if they're a resident of Newton and they're closer to the Newton school than they are to the Baxter school, we cannot go in. All right. So it gave some flexibility, but there's another piece to that too, that, it doesn't change a whole lot. The third one, the big one, is teacher salaries, and that's something we'll continue to work through here for a handful of years, to be honest with you. Just a few pieces to that, there were certain things that they included when they gave us our TSS that we may have been paying out as an extended contract. And a lot of that came from the TLC program. So one of the things that we've done is suspended extended contracts for TLC. We'll use the term suspended right now just because there's still so much unknown as we move forward with this. The allotment of TSS funding that we got was based on something called our fall bed staff that Julie and I will fill out here this fall and report to the state. We will do that again this year, and now it'll be a little bit better because we actually understand the importance of it. Because they did this, unfortunately for some schools, if you weren't real specific on how you entered your salaries and things into your fall bed staff, it cost you this year. Because no school then knew that they were going to base the TSS allotments off of what was reported in their fall bed staff. We know that for next year. Now, what we have to understand is they're going to use that number or those numbers we put in next year at this point for eternity. So it's an extremely important year for us in reporting salaries and those types of things in this fall bed staff system, because that's the allotment we're going to receive moving forward. Julie spent a ton of time on it, and, really appreciate what she did when it came to the negotiations piece. And she understands we're not done. I mean, there's still gonna be a lot of work to be done. This is only tier 1. Tier 2 will be next year when they move the minimum salary to 50, the 12-year veterans to 62. How do we try to avoid compaction within that? How do we plan for, if we can't completely avoid compaction, how do we plan for a year when we may have 8 teachers moving into year 13, and we understand they're gonna need a $12,000 increase if we can't deal with compaction. So there's just a lot of moving parts around the teacher salary piece, but obviously that was really big legislation. And the last one, the AA funding and operation. Well, any questions on the teacher salary portion? I said a lot of words that probably made no sense there. And that's okay. But it's convoluted. The next fund, I'll get into even a little bit more on the AEA funding, but any questions on the teacher salary stuff? The other thing I will tell you is, part of this bill, initially was the idea of moving support staff up to $15 an hour. That didn't make it into the final cut of the bill. Instead, there was a $14 million allocation statewide, which we will receive to spread out amongst support staff. So we'll have that discussion at some time in the future, ask you to approve what we do with that. It'll probably be a one-time disbursement, divided out equally between our support staff. One of the things that Julie filled out that the state asked of was how many employees do we have below $15 an hour? How much would it take us to get to $15 an hour? So that should tell you that that conversation's probably not over. If they're asking for that information, wanting to know the financials on what it would take to get all your support staff to $15 an hour, there's gonna be something coming in the funnel, this next session, so we can just expect that. So questions on that? Okay,
The only thing I would say is we just wanna start looking at it as early as possible, even if they, legislation is still going on and they can still change things at any point. It would be nice to start seeing the numbers with the staff we have in place at this time, with like, if the rules were to stay the same, what that's gonna look like, just to start wrapping our heads around it a little bit earlier, so I feel more
we're
confident
frozen,
in what we're seeing.
right?
Yeah,
Certified.
we're frozen certified. And we don't know what that new number is going to
Yeah.
be until, I think, October 15th is our beds
The
deadline.
due date.
And so then it's probably not till like December, January.
Yeah, that time frame's fine, I
Okay,
was just.
yeah. And we actually only have one person who was below the 15. And it was gonna cost $2,600, I think, to get them up to the 15. Everybody else, we've done a good job at, bringing that up, as best we
Yeah.
can.
So, and important to know from the certified staff standpoint, with the agreement that was made with the union this last year, the association is, it's a 2-year agreement basically. We have some of the pieces that are frozen there to account for this tier 2 of this minimum teacher salary raise. The other part is the AEA funding. So there's a couple pieces with that. Now, they cut $10 million from the AEA funding to start with. And then every district has something that's called AEA flow through. All right. What is it and why do they say that? It goes through us, but we don't see a dime of it. It just goes to the AEA and it helps support the services we get from the AEA. But one of the things they did with general ed and media services this year is they're only pushing 40% of that AEA flow through to the AEA, and they're allowing us to keep 60%. What that means is the AEA has moved to a fee for service schedule. So what you're probably gonna see come across to be approved at the board level here, depending on what services we get from the AEA, are separate contracts with the AEA for those services. So I've gone through this process with my other district. I'm gonna go through this process on Monday with Dr. Anderson, the AEA here. And they're gonna lay out, here's our services, here's what we charge for each service. What do you want? I will tell you right now, the flow through number that we get from the AEA is not going to be enough. I shouldn't say that, depending on the services we get. There's a high likelihood it won't be enough to cover the services we were receiving when we were sending all of our money to the AEA. This bill for most schools our size is not beneficial. It may sound great on the surface, we get to keep 60% of the AEA flow through. Well, I can tell you right now, I'm gonna guess, Julie, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, our AEA flow through right here annually is probably somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000. That somewhere in the ballpark.
Yep. And I can actually this in the document.
So if you use those numbers and you get to keep 60% of that, that's not gonna purchase the services we were receiving before, I'm just telling you. Because the AEA is going to have to base their model around private service model. And they're a little unsure too from a staffing
Our
level.
flow through was 180,
How it was? Okay. Total, that's not,
184.
is that including special ed?
No.
That's just gen ed and media services? Okay. So,
We pushed that all to them.
so those will be things that we'll meet with the AEA, decide what services we will continue, what services we may not continue. And this is special ed stays the same, okay? And so all of our special ed funding still goes through.
And so, based off that number you get, we get 60% of that.
We would be,
And then-
we keep 60%, the AA, what the AA is gonna do is take the 40% they get and apply it to the services that we're getting already. Like a credit, right?
Okay.
So we sign up for all these services, they're gonna say, here's the 40% that's flowing through, we're gonna take that off. If you want the rest of these services, here's what it costs.
Right.
So we'll go through that on Monday and have a better idea of what is it that we're asking for the AA from a service standpoint, what it's going to cost us. I went through the process, like I said, at my other district, and it's gonna cost us more than we're gonna spend beyond the AA flow we were looking for, to get the same services we were receiving before. I'll take that back. We're gonna spend above our AA flow through and receive less services than we were looking for.
Who is moderating what the AEA can charge for their services?
So really, the AEA has now been put under the purview of the Department of Education, which is fairly scary in and of itself. So that's kind of who has oversight of that. My understanding in talking with Central Rivers AEA last week is that they met as a collective and established rates as a collective. Because here's what you have to understand with this. If they don't do that, and Heartland has this rate, and Prairie Lakes has this rate, we can decide to go through Prairie Lakes with a different AEA. We don't have to contract with the AEA that we're in. So it's in their benefit to have a collective and establish those numbers accordingly.
Will it be based on our enrollment? Because, I mean, the same service that we get here.
It depends on the service.
Yeah.
It depends on the service.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions on that piece? I'll have more clarity next week, hopefully.
I mean, this is so new. Is there any other companies that are providing competitive services yet? Or, I mean, I think that's what the theory is, that they want to get to that point and,
Right.
and have it, market based. And if the AAs are charging $100 an hour and somebody else is willing to do it for 50, I think that's where they want to get to. But
Right.
Is there
It
anybody
depends
out
on-
there right now?
It depends on what service you're using and your usage in general.
Okay.
The benefit of the AEA was you were getting an all-encompassing package of services, right? So really, this is district to district dependent on how are you utilizing the AEA before? And if you really weren't, then this is beneficial for you, right? The problem is some of those things come up that you can't anticipate for some services, but you're right, that is the idea behind it, is to make it more market competitive and those types of things. Location is going to be extremely important when it comes to that. Because when you talk about other private companies or industries that can do that, they have to be within your vicinity to be able to provide those services. We may be okay here with where we're located if we have to look outside of the AEA for those services. But it is so new. It's so new, they're not even sure, right? I mean, they don't know what this is even gonna look like moving forward. So,
I think what I would be really interested is making sure that they can guarantee they can provide those services, because if everybody really likes the Heartland, and they don't wanna go through Central Rivers, for example, are they gonna get too busy to be able to provide the service reliably? And also, can you get out of the contract if the persons they provide are not providing services at?
yeah, most of your contracts that you'll sign will be annual, but you have to look to see what sort of a termination agreement you might have within those, or a clause that would allow you to get out of those. As far as the feasibility of going through one AEA over another is probably fine if you can do it remotely. But the location of the AEAs in and of themselves are going to create a geographic barrier to you really shopping around. Because somebody from Pocahontas, you might like that service from Pocahontas, but they're gonna tell you, okay, we'll support that service, but now I have to expense you for travel as well, right?
I think it was a lot of what I had heard from some other districts, some people that worked in multiple districts and worked with multiple AEAs, the consultation piece that they received from one AEA, not needing them in the classroom, but just straight up consultation that they were receiving was superior in one versus the other, one person versus the other. So just wanted to be cognizant that
Yeah.
that might change the landscape as we move along.
Right. Any questions on those? Those are the four big ones from a legislative standpoint.
The open enrollment, did they ever make any changes as far as the money that?
They did not.
They were talking about that, correct?
They were talking about sending all of the money with the kid, or close to 100% with the student to that district. They were seeking support. The last time I had talked with one of our representatives, they wanted me to write a letter of support that would do just that. But then as I read the rest of it, the last clause, you had to develop a plan in how you would get your open enrollment percentage below a certain percentage. What was your plan to limit your open enrollment? And I said, well, why would I want to do that? That doesn't make, I said, I can't write a letter of support for that. Because I asked, is this only for schools? And they said, no, it'd be for everybody. So I would think that topic will come up again. But I don't know, it didn't make it very far this legislative session. Yeah, because there's a certain amount of funding that doesn't follow the student. The only other thing I had, I just wanted to know if there was any other questions on the SRO sharing position. We met with the county and with the city here a couple of weeks ago. Are there any questions on where we're at with that, or any questions regarding that?
I assume they've got their grant application in.
They got the grant application, and yeah, I got them their letter of support. You know, the one thing that I would want you to be cognizant of is if this goes through, we need to start the planning process right now for what this is gonna look like in year 4. This is a 3-year funded grant. Now, the one thing I will say, and I don't know if I've shared this with you yet, Julie, is we will receive operational sharing for this position in the state. So we won't pay anything, and we're still gonna receive some funding on top of that. It's gonna be something we'll want to earmark or be cognizant of. Okay, over these last 3 years, we've received $45,000. We know that this cost moving forward is gonna be $30,000, whatever it may be split. So it is gonna be something that if we want to look to continue that after year 3, we have to proactively budget for.
That operation sharing count against like superintendent, all the other positions that we have, or is that a
It's part of
separate?
your limit.
Yeah, it will be part of your
It
limit.
counts 2.
Two, yeah. Now, the nice part with that one, for at least 3 years, is it counts as part of your limit and you take on no expense for it. So
You
you're
can
truly coming
bank.
out positive, you can bank it, right?
Which that's what we probably should be doing, if
That's
we're
right.
to pay for year 4 and 5.
Right,
Okay.
and yeah, into the future.
Does a position like that have to be general fund? I was just curious
Yeah.
if there were any different rules that would apply for something.
No, because you're,
Payroll,
yeah,
basically.
yeah, salary and benefits still has to come up there.
Chris, do you think there'll ever be legislation that gives funding to make sure there is an SRO in every single school?
You know, they've broached that topic already in large schools, right? The legislation, politically correct, the legislation that has made its way through over the past few years doesn't seem to be legislation that has a lot of concern for smaller or maybe rural districts. So while we may be able to find some different avenues, safety grants or things like that, that we could qualify for to pay for that, I would be hard pressed to think with what I interpret sometimes is a push for consolidation of small schools, that they're gonna say, we're gonna fund you an SRO.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that has come up a few times in the past is increasing our operational sharing max. So it's 21 right now. They've thrown the number 29, 28 or 29 out last year. It's never quite made its way through, but that could be something where we could find some benefit as well.
Yeah, because if you remember, or maybe you didn't recall this, it used to be that you could only do that for 5 years.
Right,
And they removed the operational sharing or the funding for it for 5 years, and it wasn't a rolling 5 years. So it was from the first year you started, even if you added some later on, once you hit that 5-year mark, you were done. And so, but they've removed that now, so there is a little bit of movement
Yep.
in there, and they did change it, a year ago, where they raised superintendent and lowered some of the others within that 21, so. I feel like that's a little bit of a hot topic still.
It is, and operational sharing is something that the state will push for in general, because it does keep costs down. Right, so you're sharing those, you're not having two of that same, like a superintendent's a great example, right? So it keeps costs down for districts, it keeps education costs down at the state level too, even with them giving us some weighting for that.
In the larger districts that had the SRO or whatever, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, they basically said if you had more than so many students, you had to have one.
Correct, they require one.
Was there any funding that went with
You
that?
know, I'm not,
I took it, it's just like you shall, and
Right.
there's no funding to do
you know,
it.
I'm not sure on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that, John, if they if they gave them funding for that or not. But you are right, if you had so many, you were required to have one. And I'm not sure if the board had any discussion as far as the legislation around arming staff. It's gonna be pretty quick because EMC won't cover you if you do. So you have to have insurance.
Have they provided any through our service, any recommended policies, right? So we have to create a policy and they usually give up with policy options.
Yeah, well, I would assume the policy primer through, Iowa Association of School Boards will be pushing something out relatively quickly on that for us.
I
to
think they
utilize
have, I
as
think we
templates.
just looked at it here, but
There were a lot. I didn't think that one was part of it. Okay.
I think.
Then the timeline. Cause they gotta wait for this grant.
Yeah, so realistically, I think we'd be looking at, second semester. That's what, because then there's gonna be, you get the grant application process, which I think he thought maybe August sometime would be done, then it's the hiring process. You know, one of the things that we discussed that day was that we would have a voice in that process as well for who that person would be, so. We will certainly have a seat at the table when the hiring process begins, as will the county. I don't know that the city of Baxter would have much say in that one. My understanding was this kind of removes that partnership from the school and the city of Baxter and it places it with the county. So, because this is separate from what they contract with the county for.
Yeah, they're two different people, correct?
Correct, yes, yep. And the only other thing I can't remember if I put it on that communication with all of you, was a question was asked about DARE. It would not be that SRO that's here, but they do provide that at no cost through Jasper County.
We already
thought
participate in
so,
the
but I
DARE
couldn't remember
program,
if
so I
it-
don't think that would be a change.
I'm not sure, somebody said we had, and then we were no longer doing it through the county or something, but I don't know what
You know
the
what,
details
this
are.
last year Bill did.
That's why I was wondering to make sure
He
that
did do it,
it's
that's right.
still,
Somebody would need to re-request
Yeah.
those services.
Correct.
Yeah.
and I know. For like the city, you were there, I guess. You know, when the sheriff's department was talking to the city, they went, the first year it's a 6% increase, then 3% the following years, just based on for their budget.
Like cost of living.
Right.
and-
I didn't know if they got any of that as far as
Well, they
how
hadn't.
we would have to think about it.
I don't-
5 years down.
I don't think they know yet. So right now, they're nearing the end. I think they're nearing the end of the first time they've done it with Limbo solely. So that is also to benefit of us, is we're not the guinea pig per se. There's a district already doing it, and we'll be able to contact them and say, you know, what does that look like after year 3? What are you paying? You know, I think they said the number that was given was it's basically $100,000 a year in cost for that position. I think it was $298,000 over 3 years. So if you use $100,000 in cost, if you're splitting that, I don't know what that split will look like with the county moving forward in year 4, probably will be dependent, like I said, will that be split 50-50? If so, then you're looking at $50,000 in cost. We pull in 15,000, your true cost is gonna probably be around $35,000 to $40,000 after you include the operational sharing dollars that we receive from it.
Just playing devil's advocate, why would the county pay half after that?
Well,
How is that a benefit? Is that,
there's a couple of ways it is. First of all, in the summer, he is their officer.
Okay.
So they do have that. Emergencies, he's still their officer, maybe some weekend stuff. I don't know that that percentage would be 50.
Yeah.
But, I'm just saying if we worked it out that way, I don't know. I think those are gonna be questions that we'll wanna ask and get a little more guidance on. The last thing I just wanted to mention is just to really thank Julie for the S&P bond rating review we went through. We did not have a material event. I think they would have been well within their purview to, reduce our credit grade. I really do, based on trend lines. Julie did a great job of explaining future demographic and future plans to really negate them from dropping us from an A rating. So I want to thank Julie for that too.
Thanks, Julie.
Say Michael couldn't be here this week, but would be here last meeting, but she put a note in here. She just wants to thank everyone for the opportunity to serve the district for the last 6 years and look forward to watching our community and school grow. Obviously her kids went here and Trent's been here forever, grew up here, graduated here. Said Baxter's been a wonderful school district and thankful that my family had the good fortune to attend here. Best of luck as you transition to the next school year, so. John always heard from John, as long as they leave it in a better place than when they
Yeah.
got here, so.
That's all we ask, so, I mean, every superintendent has, and every superintendent we hire was the right person at the right time, so I fully believe that with Chris too, that you're the right person for the right time. Move us forward.
That would take a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Meeting adjourned 7:36.
Turn it off, it's full and shut.
Yeah.